Hey, Drew.
Hey, Mark.
What are your thoughts on Bigfoot? You a believer?
I guess I can't rule it out. I've never seen him, but I've never not seen him.
Shoot for the captive ball.
Interesting. That's an interesting line of logic that I feel like you could walk into weird situations with.
I'm not a Bigfoot believer.
Wow, really?
No.
Okay. Even though around the world, culturally, a lot of people, different tribes of people have, different names for Sasquatch-like creatures, Yeti, and so on.
I think it's just a tall, hairy guy.
Just some dude out there, out in the wilderness, just went on like a vision quest.
I do believe in tall, hairy men.
That is hard to deny.
Yeah.
Here, kind of a fun fact for you. Did you know when the term Bigfoot started being used? If you had to give me a ballpark decade.
Bigfoot. As a name for this kind of mythical creature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
1945.
You're not super far off. 1958.
Okay.
The name Bigfoot came into being because of some really human-like big footprints that a group of loggers came upon in California. And they started referencing it as like this creature that left it as Bigfoot because it left the big footprint. They made a big plaster cast of this footprint, made it into the newspaper, and sort of swept the nation in terms of the naming and like, does this cryptid exist? And that's how the name as we know it today got started. And the reason, of course, I bring that up is because today for pinball, we're talking about whitewater, the pinball machine.
Yes.
About whitewater rafting.
The famous pinball about Bigfoot and rafting.
That's right. And, it's worth noting, yeah, there's like a really strange Bigfoot toy that exists prominently on this machine. In the top, there's like a small top playfield, and right on top is this like Bigfoot creature. And at certain points in the machine, he has a very human face that turns around and smiles at you. And that's whitewater for you. Whitewater is a machine that was created in the 90s, in that golden era of pinball that we have mentioned in previous episodes. And it's such an interesting theme because it is meant to evoke the feeling of whitewater rafting while playing pinball, which are two things that you would think, I don't know how well that goes together, but I think it does an interesting job. And this is another, I have played this machine before in my past, but today we're going to take a kind of a critical view of it. And it was made by Williams in 93. And the lead designer was a guy named Dennis Nordman, who has made some other very interesting machines in his career, some of which I hope that we cover at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to it. I think it's really interesting. You talk about trying to evoke the feeling of whitewater rafting. That feels kind of like a challenge. I feel like pinball feels like pinball. And
yeah.
It's all about kind of fast shots and timing and whatever. Whitewater rafting is about, I don't know, trying not to swim.
Yeah, I think that's how they describe it.
Yeah.
It's in the merch, the marketing for this machine, the slogan of it was "Go with the flow," and so I think we're going to be seeing a lot of shots that should evoke a feeling of kind of being whisked away on water, and pinball being a quick, rapid game in different machines seems like that would be an appropriate place for it.
Okay,
things to look out for, I think, when we go to play. There are. I mentioned an upper play field. There are sort of two main paths that you can. There are three paths you can come down when you play in the upper play field. One is what looks like a series of rapids. It looks like a little bit of a roller coaster that the ball's going to go on. The other looks like some sort of cave, and I'm not sure where that fully ends up. And then lastly, there is, if you don't make either of those shots, the ball just kind of drains down to one of your flippers.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't immediately drain the ball, but doesn't take an exciting journey down. And then otherwise, it looks like the rest of the playfield seems pretty crowded, which seems appropriate for whitewater rafting, where you're often in these canyons and you don't have much choice but to survive the rapids and water. When do you think whitewater rafting started?
Like as a formal sport?
I think as a thing that people did.
I'm gonna say it goes back to like logging times. 1875.
Wow. Also not too far off. 1811.
Oh wow.
First recorded whitewater rafting trip on the Snake River, which is predominantly in Idaho, I think
that's right. Yeah.
Which
What are they rafting on back then?
the first whitewater raft was made out of wood.
Oh,
and just had,
no.
I think, some like rubber, a little bit of buoy or something. Like,
Wow.
And so now that you know it started in 1811, you know a guy named John D. Rockefeller?
Sure.
What did he do for? I mean, obviously I know it.
I think he built a bunch of TV studios in Manhattan.
That's right.
No, he's an oil baron.
That's right. His son, John D. Rockefeller Jr., tried to open the world's first whitewater rafting resort because he enjoyed it. I don't know if it's because he enjoyed it or he just saw money signs.
Now,
like,
are you like sleeping on the rafts? Are you?
No. In like the Smoky Mountains somewhere, like Gatlinburg or something like that. He wanted to build a resort, and then people would launch from there.
And then he drives you back to the hotel at night.
It's unclear why it failed.
Okay.
Presumably because he didn't have those things planned out. I like to imagine he built it and a bunch of people got stranded downriver, and he was just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
My concern was getting you on the river.
Poor John D. Rockefeller Jr. Did this financially ruin him?
Yeah, probably. He was always living in daddy's shadow.
Yeah.
No one ever says enough about poor John D. Rockefeller Jr.
I've long said that. No one pays enough attention to
famously
the children of billionaires.
Yeah, famously you say that. All right, sorry, not to keep us here longer than we needed to be. Yeah, let's go.
Let's go give it a whirl.
Okay. Okay, we're back. Well, I told you that this was meant to evoke sort of the feeling and quickness of being on the water. You think it lived up to that hype?
If I had been whitewater rafting, maybe I could give you a better answer. But
have you been rafting at all? I've rafted.
When I was a kid, yeah, I did go on like a little tour thing. I didn't really do anything. I just kind of sat there on the raft.
Recently in my life, I floated a river for the first time. I still felt like it was thrilling.
Oh, yeah. Floating's a whole different ballgame. I can...
I saw like little bitty, I felt like I was taken away. And honestly, I feel like this game does a good job of evoking that.
I feel it. I see what you're saying, for sure.
All right. So let's get into the meat of things, which is how we look at a game through a critical lens to guide these discussions. Because again, at least for my experience, I come at this with a lot of zeal, and I really like pinball, but I am one of the first to admit I'm not real good at pinball. And so to understand what makes this appealing for amateurs, hobbyists, and people new to pinball, I think is looking at things with these three lenses. What the game design, the layout of the playfield, whether the shots are hittable, whether the modes are good. The theme, how well does it kind of hit the mark in terms of the feelings it's trying to evoke in the player? And the fun factor, right? Like what keeps you coming back for more, and would you continue wanting to play that? So let's tackle those one by one. Right. Let's talk a little bit about game design. So I've talked a little bit already about the goal of this to be evoking feelings of rafting, moving quickly on water, somewhat in control, sometimes a little bit unpredictable. The idea, I think, of sort of being confined in tight spaces. And I think it hits a lot of that. Like first of all, I really want to talk about this upper playfield. These two shots.
Yeah, I love it.
Are amazing.
I love the upper playfield.
The one that's on the far left that looks a little bit like a roller coaster. It's just it's the ball zigs and zags up and down, and then it like kind of spins out like in a little eddy, I think, and it comes down to the left flipper, and it's just awesome.
I think one of the things that is most difficult to design in a pinball machine is a shot that is achievable, but it feels like an accomplishment when you hit it. and it feels just like very satisfying. There's kind of a sweet spot where it's kind of hard, but not too hard. And that shot for me, that far left kind of upper playfield shot, really hit the target for me.
Yeah.
Just a lot of fun.
Yeah. And for me, it's actually that second shot where I feel even more of that a sense of accomplishment. The other upper playfield shot is like sometimes there's a light on it. It says whirlpool is lit. It's the one that like will start the like Bigfoot sort of like multi-ball experience. That one feels harder to hit. And then when you do, it goes into this like vortex kind of plastic funnel. And then before spitting back out into the main lower playfield. And I feel like that shot for me was really, really hard to hit. But every time I hit it, I felt like I was on top of the world. Yeah.
And I think there's a big payout there. In addition to being hard to hit, it's really fun to watch. That whirlpool. And I guess now that you mention it, there are kind of 3 like really cool like pinball motions, I guess, that you don't see in a lot of machines on whitewater. There's that bumpy roller coaster. And it's amazing to me that doesn't ever get stuck in the trough. Or I mean, probably somewhere it does, but I've never seen it, you know?
Oh yeah. That's an interesting thought.
It's great. Then there's the kind of whirlpool that you can unlock where it spins around and it kind of, it's like one of those big water slides that you can spin around, right?
Yeah.
And then this one's maybe the least unique, but it's very, very cool and satisfying. Also, to get up to the upper playfield, there's that kind of like arching shot that like rainbows it in.
Oh yeah.
I really like when you shoot a ball up and it goes through like a wire guide like that. It's just kind of cool.
It is really neat. It is also kind of cool. Like you see this, I think, a lot with skill shots where like you have to be very delicate on the plunger. But I think this is also a really rewarding way to do that, to get to the upper playfield. By the way, when you shoot it, and if you're too heavy, you overshoot those 2 rapid shots, and then you're immediately just dunked back into the lower playfield.
Yeah.
Or if you're too light, I think if you're really too light, I think it just comes back down to the plunger. I can't remember if there's a catch that just slops it down to the flipper or not, but it's nice when you have that kind of finesse as well, which sort of, because it's going to the upper playfield, felt sort of unique, even though you see similar mechanics elsewhere.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty common shot to have like a target on the plunger, you know, to get it onto an upper playfield and not overshoot it.
Yeah,
it's a very fun shot.
My biggest complaints really is the claustrophobia of the board feels. I mean, it's appropriate. It's appropriate for the game, but it's hard to play in.
Yeah.
When you like the ball gets zipped around with some speed. If there's not a lot of space for it to go, like your reaction times need to be really quick. It feels really punishing if you're missing shots, and also unrelated to the claustrophobia, it felt like there's just not a lot of modes going on here. Like,
yeah, I found myself kind of confused and lost for a lot of the time. Like there was a lot of cool stuff to do, but it didn't feel like I was progressing.
Yes, totally. And that's maybe my biggest complaint is like, how do you progress? So there's clear progression on the playfield. There's a number of rafts kind of going down a canyon, and the goal of the objective is to advance the raft down the canyon, light up the next raft.
I don't think I even picked up on that.
And that's, I think, a challenge with the lack of progression. But we've had this conversation before with like 90s era machines. Maybe that's part of the design. You obfuscate things a little bit because that forces kids to pump in more quarters if they can't get big points, win replays, and
I wonder, you remember, back in speaking of the 90s with video games, you could get these like magazines with your, Sega game. Or It would tell you how to play.
Yeah.
I wonder if there was ever a market for that in pinball, like a kind of someone's publishing like the guide to whitewater and some kid buys it and all of a sudden is putting up all the high scores.
I like to imagine that there were pinball demos in magazines like there used to be for like PlayStation and stuff.
Like a little origami pinball.
That's right. Yeah. Like imagine in modern days, like an e-ink display or something where you push buttons and you watch it go.
Yeah, that would sell all the machines.
Yeah. As clever as the game design is, I feel like it's to the detriment of the gameplay. And so I rated this shockingly, I have this at 2 stars out of 5.
Yeah, I gave it a 3. I think I'm maybe a little more forgiving, but I like the game. I didn't understand, what I'm supposed to be doing, and I didn't feel like it was clear what was going on.
Agreed. So let's talk about theming. The Bigfoot imagery doesn't really make a lot of sense here, But I got to tell you, it's both amazing and incredibly creepy. I cannot, like, if we can on the website, like when this episode goes up, we should include a picture of this smiling toy.
Yeah.
Because it's really uncomfortable.
It's a little uncomfortable, but
I hope it's not the creator's face or something.
I hope so too. It's creepy, but it's kind of like, it's kitschy and oddly charming now that we're 30 years removed from it, I think.
Totally. And like the head, like there's no need for this toy to be there and for the head to rotate around when you have like the Bigfoot, like, multi-ball or whatever that's called.
I like fun stuff like that.
It makes the machine feel like the universe lived in or something, right? Like,
yeah, like little details that don't need to be explained. That's the way it is.
We talk a lot about in theming, like, does the branding make sense if it's intellectual property? If it's not intellectual property, like, how appealing is this as a theme? And I absolutely love, like, this is such like a strange idea to put into pinball. I'm all about it. Like, this is amazing to me that someone had this idea.
I love the theme, and I love how it opens up these unique shots that we've talked about, the wavy, the ones that are fun to watch after you hit them, right? The little waves on the right or the left, the whirlpool, like, just excellent execution.
Yeah. I gave this a 4-star out of 5 because I think the theme is amazing, but it is to the detriment of gameplay, which we've already talked about in the design.
Yeah. I think no notes, 4 out of 5.
Excellent. Fun factor. I feel like if I were, we were lucky in the venue that we played had a killer deal for us to play, like, we paid $20-$30 or something. We got unlimited plays for a couple hours.
Yeah.
If I had to put in quarters for each of these games, I think I'd be furious. This game eats quarters alive. And part of that is because there's no ball save. So if you immediately drain a ball, tough luck. You're on to the next one. This was brutal for me in terms of that element.
Yeah. I think maybe because I didn't have to pay for it, I enjoyed it a lot more. I guess I didn't think about the lack of ball save.
Yeah. And for me, like the fun part, like the fun comes from the theme and like watching the ball do those like really unique shots you just had mentioned. But the thing that take away from the fun is how furious I am at how quickly a game can end, which, by the way, has the opposite effect. Like, if you get real good, like, you feel like you're like, I'm having the best time ever. But that's one game out of 20, 1 out of 10. And for those other 9 or 19 games, I'm livid because it was over in 3 minutes.
I guess for me, the fun of watching the fun shots kind of outweighed that. And I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Okay. I put it at 3 out of 5 because I feel like the highs are high, the lows are low.
Sure.
And somewhere in between is where I meet.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we do every time we review something, we play some games as we're going through our review process. And then at the end, we play 3 games sort of head to head. We take the best score of each of our 3 games to see who's won this week on the pinball machine we're talking about. And I don't know, the loser probably buys a beer or feels bad.
Probably both.
Yeah, we should probably figure out like an actual punishment. Feeling bad, announcing a low score is probably punishment enough.
I feel like I've been punished for my low scores.
You are correct. My highs were high, my lows were low. As always, I don't think we're setting any records anywhere, but my high score was 53,338,200, and my low was 4 million. Like, just like, what a gap.
Yeah. I mean, I had similar spreads, maybe not quite as extreme. My high was 73,167,880. So I got I edged you out a little bit on some sort of whirlpool, nonsense or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I did keep it in the double digit.
That's a good game. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks.
Applause to you. And, any final thoughts here before we wrap up?
Nope.
The truth is out there, Drew. The truth is out there. Bigfoot will rise again.
Mass paddling, partner!